Hello, welcome to today's episode of 3D Drawing for Model Railway. In the last episode, I think we got to the point where we're pretty much complete with the DTS 62 now, so I'm going to start setting up the print files and show you how I'm going to print my model. So the first thing I'm really going to look at is the chassis, so I'm going to turn everything else off. And the reason I'm going to start with the chassis first is that's the largest part, and it's the part that I do have a little bit of concern over the handrails with. I'm going to try and print them all as one part so that they will be attached, but we may have to make some amendments to that as we go along. To be able to print these attached, realistically I need all these bits to be upward facing on the model, on the build plate, sorry. So to do that I'm going to have to support the model from underneath. Now when I go to do this, I could leave on some of the detail underneath. You know, these lights will be left on, and I think the tanks should be okay being left on. But I'm tempted to just remove them anyhow and print them upside down because I'll get a better print off of them. But the one thing I will need to remove is the bogie bolsters here, because if I try to print these and put supports on, you won't end up with a smooth finish on these, and then the bogie won't sit and rotate properly. So to be able to remove them, I'm going to just use the split body tool. Not sure why this has come up with an error. Because that's highlighted there. So just cancel that, go back into the split body tool. I'm going to select the body as you can see, the main part of the chassis. And the splitting tool, I'm going to use the lower face. Okay. Now what that will do is it will split off everything from that face downwards. Wait a minute, let's just change that. We need the radio button checked. That's it. Not sure. We'll do the splitting tool. So the body's going to be the main one, splitting tool being that lower face. And you'll see as soon as I do this, I'm going to end up with more than one body here. It will split off everything below that point into all these separate parts. Okay. What I'm going to do is recombine all of the lights and leave off the tanks and these bolsters. So if we find the bolsters, you can see that when you hover over them, it highlights them. So that's that one, that one. These tanks here. Like that. Okay, so then I'm left with the main body and all of the lights. So I'm going to recombine the body with those lights there, so they're all part of the same model. And then if I redo these, I can rename these. Double click to rename, and it's going to be tank 1. Okay, it's got separate paths all done now. Okay. The next thing I need to do with this is export it. So I'm going to go up the top here and then select 3D print, select the body, and you want to make sure this is unchecked unless you want to go straight into Chitubox. So uncheck this, and then you can click on OK, and then you can save this into a folder. Wait for it to catch up. Shouldn't have done that. Sure, I just did that unchecked. I'll let it load Chiubox. Select the body, click on OK. Okay, so let's find DTS 62, print file, and that's going to be the chassis name 1. And so we've got Chitubox loaded up. Let's open the file. Chassis name 1. Okay, now you can see that it's automatically put it in, and it's the correct way up, but obviously the wrong direction. So we're just going to look to rotate this. I'm going to use this scroller here. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees to the build plate. Now you can see that it would fit if you were to want to print it flat, but that's really not a good idea. If you could do that, you would end up with it peeling. What we didn't do here is combine the handrails in, so if we just get rid of that, come back into here, and I'm going to go up to the top model, click the radio button there, and then I'm going to combine the main body with the handrails. So if we come over to the handrail section here, we've got 4 sets of bodies in here, so we can select those 4 and click on OK, and then we'll export that. So 3D print that body, click on OK. We'll leave that there, but we'll just change that name to with handrails. And the reason I keep it separate is if these handrails don't print well enough, then I can go back and just use this as the main body part. Okay, so let's select that with handrail file. Okay, and then we're going to rotate the blue on the Z-axis. Going to rotate that 90 degrees, and then we need to have it at an angle. So I'm going to use the red axis here. I'm just going to rotate that up about 29 degrees. Now they do give you specific numbers which work best. I haven't really found much of a massive difference when I print at 0.03 layer resolution. So I'm just going for that sort of angle there. And then we're going to have to add all the supports. Now I generally use my medium supports, and I always do them manually. You can just click and get it to do it automatically, but I find that it never catches everything. So by the time I've done that and then gone around and added the supports manually on top of that, I might as well have just done them in the first place. So I'm just going along this bottom edge and I'm selecting to add supports onto that bottom surface here. Okay, so always start with that bottom edge. That's where I always go with. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is going to run up the side. So I always put the next support up the side reasonably close so that it's got a bit of support there. And then I just start to space them out. So now you've got to start looking here at where the island's going to be. So the first part you can see, this is all going to join so we can print fine. But you can see as you come up that black line, it's starting to put an island in this position here. So you have to support that island there. Okay, and then I'm just going to come up the model here and continue to work my way all the way up the edge. Cut on that bottom corner there. It is really important that you do catch those islands, because if you don't, what will happen is when it starts to print, it will start to print this bit on the inside of the printer, but because it's not touching the build plate at that point, there's nothing to support it, so it will literally just stick on the FEP inside the print vat until you get to this point here, and then it will all peel off and fail horribly. So always just catch all those islands. You're better to catch them now than find out afterwards and end up with potentially damage inside your printer. All right to the end there. So always go down one side. I always have that habit of going down that one side and then turn around and go back down the other side. So here you can see this little pipe isn't becoming an island there, which is good. You can see on the light here, that'll be an island, so we'll come back in a minute and support that. Okay, so once I've gone up both sides, then spin the model around and I just go across the top edge here. Okay, so that's all around the outside supported. Then across the inside, you just want to add supports reasonably close, but randomly, so that the whole model is supported all the way across. When I do these are always a little bit haphazard. There's no real set pattern I'm using, but you can see sort of the distance I'm aiming for between the supports to give me adequate strength. And I always go in like a zigzag pattern across the model, so that the supports are tied to the edges across, rather than if you just go up one side, you'll end up with them, all of these bits that are branched across all down one side and this side not tied across the model. And then potentially you end up with a little bit of a wobble on that side, so you don't necessarily get a clean print across. So that's completed there. Next thing you need to do is find, I'd say, all those little islands. So first of all, we know that this part on the end here, this is going to produce an island as it prints. So you can see it comes up. You're going to end up with a bottom edge. Let's see if I can get this scrolled in enough that you can see. So this bottom edge here will be an island. So I'm just going to add a couple of little light supports. Bottom edge there. And then I'm going to put a medium support on this edge here. And just roll that up, and I'm looking to see if there's any more little islands that appear. Yeah, there's going to be one on the edge there. Can't quite work out if there's one right on. Yeah, I think there might well be one there. There. And the issue that you're going to have here really is we're going to end up losing some of the detail on there, because obviously these supports just swamp these parts here. But unfortunately, there's not a lot else you can do about that. So let's work our way up. This part will be fine. These will be fine, or should all be fine, because they're attached to the back of the model. But we'll highlight that in my validator in a minute. That bottom edge should be fine to go all the way across to the side of the chassis. Okay, so this bit here, we can see that that's already supporting an island here. So I'm going to get a medium support in on the base of that. That's not what you want. So we're going to remove that. I'm going to add a support onto the side like that. And then I'm going to edit the tip of the support to come into the base of the light. Okay, and then we need to make sure that it's not crossing or intersecting the side of the chassis frame there at all. So like that. Okay, so we've got to do the same on this side with that part. Scroll down right in on here. Again, I'm placing it on the side, and then I'm going to edit it to sit on the bottom. See, that's not touching the chassis at all, so I'm not going to move. I'm not going to move that at all. Okay, there's nothing else up this side that should be an issue until we get to the lights on the top end here. So if we just rotate that around, have a quick look. Yeah, so it's going to need one on there as well. So again, do the same thing. Oops, didn't want to add that there. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to drag it in to the base of the light, and I'm going to move it out slightly so that it's not going to catch on the front. Okay, so if that one needs one on that side, we'll have to do the same for this one on this side. So again, we just stick it on the side of the frame, and we can edit it at the bottom. I'm going to raise that up slightly. Checking it's not clashing with the frame, which I think it might be there. So I'm just going to drag it out slightly. Let's have a look this side. Okay, those look okay there. So that all looks okay. So I'm going to check this file in the validator now. So the next thing I'm going to do is you slice this up. You can see this is working reasonably quickly here. Essentially what slicing does is it produces a file which tells the printer what light to turn on and off for every single layer that's produced. And it does it all the way from the very bottom of the build plate right to the highest point, which on this model will be the tip of these stanchions here. And the number of layers dictates how long it will take to produce as well. Okay, so within Chiubox, now it's sliced this, you can see roughly how much resin it's going to use, about 16 milliliters. Sorry. Price will be about 55 pence worth of resin for that, and it's going to take about 11 hours to produce that, which is quite a long time, but when you're producing something that's that long, that's what it's going to take. So the best thing you could do is it's going to take 11 hours to produce that no matter what. So if you're going to produce this, you're going to want to fill this plate as much as possible, because the more items you put on this plate, the more productive it will be. Obviously, if you want to do two of these, just you could get these two side by side here. So I'm going to save that, and it's going in the same folder. I'm going to click on Save there. I'm going to come into the Photon Validator, open that file, look in the same directory. one. While that's still writing, it's going to have this temporary file here. So now that's finished writing, you select the file, click on open, and then what this does is it runs through every single layer looking for any points that are completely unsupported. So once this is finished, it gives you a list of all the layers that have got islands on them. So you can click on them, and then you can go through and find out, like here, it's a tiny little one in here. Okay, you could just turn them off. You could add within this software to them. But what I can do on here is if I click on fix, click on start, it will work its way through them and automatically fix them itself. The ones that it can't fix, you can then go back in and potentially add little supports in yourself to fix them. So this is completed now, and it's found that there's only one layer that has got an unsupported island at layer level 1127. So if we have a look on here, we can try and work out what it is and if it can be fixed. Looking at that, I'm not entirely sure why that's like that. What we can do is come back into Chitubox and we can find layer 1127. There's no real reason why that would produce that. And again, looking in this, it's only one spot. And if you go either side of it, there's nothing on the next layer, and the layer before theoretically should have had this connected to it. So I'm not going to worry about that, and I will go in once I've added everything to the build plate. I'll just go in, select that, turn that island off, and then it will be fixed. Okay, so if we jump into Fusion next, we'll catch the next longest piece. Turn these lot off. So the next one would be the roof panel, would be the longest one next. So we can do the same process as that, 3D print that part. So it's already saving as the roof. And jumping back into Fusion, if we move this off to one side, out of the way a little bit, we can then add in the roof section. You can see we automatically rotate that through 90 degrees. Just going to move it. I'm going to move it sort of to a similar angle, 29 degrees. Make sure the height's not going above it so we don't end up with extra time. We might actually just change this down slightly so this is a little less flat on the top here. It's not really making it any better. I'm going to go about that, I think. So about 22 degrees, there's a slight angle downwards there, so that'll help with that print. Okay, so we can add the supports in on this. So again, similar process using the medium supports. Let's get this bottom edge. Now the bottom edge here might be a pain because it is a point. So the supports themselves might burst all the way through if we're not that careful. So that one is too far out to catch the edge. Let's just get right to the edge if we can. There you go. You can see the issue that I'm going to have there is that because we've got a pointed end there, they're going to burst all the way through. So rotate it a bit better so you can see. And the support's actually sticking through the end. So what I'll do is I'll leave them like that, and then just use a file when it's printed just to take those off. That one. Right on the edge here. You can see that it's not the greatest trying to print points like that, but unfortunately that's the shape that we've got for the cab. So again, we're just going to run all the way down this side here. We're going to have the same issue on the side as well. You're actually going to remove those. I'm going to move them inboard slightly. I'm not worried about this here. Come out there. What that is, that model's just overlapping slightly. I'll go inside and we'll catch all the leading edges, places like this here. And this one here. And we'll go through the same process as we did before, just fill in randomly all the way across. So that looks okay. Just reposition these slightly. So if we get this towards the edge, bring this one across. I want a little bit of gap between. I don't mind that little overlap there. I can snap that off. And I wonder if we can get any smaller parts down the side here, which will help to obviously reduce the time that is needed on other items. Just looking at this, there is going to actually be an extra support I need to get in here, and that's going to be on the bottom of these. I need to try and somehow connect the parts. See how that's coming through. That's not something I want to do. I don't want to come through there. So let's remove that. Let's try by initially adding one to the side somewhere, and then I'm going to move that support around. So it's this one here. Bring out to the side. See if I can catch it onto the bottom here. So I'm not worried about it coming through there at the moment. I can do that. That's a massive long support to come across there. But I can close that up in a second. Let's just try and position this. Okay, so I think that's going right into the bottom there. So I want to now try and just get that in a bit closer. Select the main part there. Just drag it in slightly. See, there's a little bit of an issue there. That needs to come up and away from the main part of the roof. See if we just get it closer still. So I think that's in. I need to go in slightly there. I think that's going to catch that okay. So I need to do the same on the other side. Let's move this to the side a little bit. I'll add one on here. Again, do the same thing. We'll add a support underneath. Move this one under there. That's it. Okay, bring that up. It needs to come this way a bit. Okay, so it's not touching underneath. There's a gap at the side. Might just bring it in slightly. Hopefully that'll be okay there. back in. And then we'll slice that and check it. So now running it through the file validator. I've got two there. One is the little vent that you need to get this arm a little bit better positioned. So I've just moved this around slightly just to catch the bottom edge. The top half was more towards the top rather than the bottom. So we're catching the bottom edge on that now. And the other one is that little spot. But you can see how it's gone from two sides to now it's just one side. And again, there's nothing either side of it that's causing an issue. So I'm not concerned about that at all in the slightest. Okay, so the next thing really I've got to do is see what I've got that can fit down this side, just to make best use of the print time while it's running. Okay, so I'm going to start by adding in a nice easy one, little toolbox we've got here. Again, 3D printing that one. Toolbox number 1 in, that's fine. So add that. Let's have a look for the fuel tank. That's going to be quite a complex one, so I'm going to leave that off so it doesn't have too many issues at the same time. Might leave that one as well. Radiator should be okay, I think. Yeah, so we'll grab that one. Again, that's going to have bits hanging. I don't want to do that at the same time. Again, that's a complicated one. But it's difficult. They definitely not. I think the gearbox should be okay. Okay, so let's drag these into Chitubox and have a look, see what it looks like. So toolbox. So that should definitely fit in. Let's rotate that. 90 degrees that way. It should be nice and easy to put the support onto this one. Just start with your lower edge, work your way across. 3 across I think should be ample there. And then work our way back down the model. I'm going to put some light supports on this lip here, because that's overhanging slightly. So I'm going for the outside edge of it, trying to get as close to the bottom as I can. Like that. Again, just going for 3 of them. It will create a bit of damage to that, but it's going to be inside the bodywork, so you won't really notice it. So that's that part. Let's drag that up here out of the way. Next part, what do we go? Gearbox. Bring that across. Rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to turn it upside down as well. Rotate it on the green axis, or the y axis 180. And then I'm going to create an angle. I'm going to go that way, I think, because. Am I? Well, what I'm thinking is this bit here would be unsupported. If I go the other way, it's going to be supported from here all the way along. I'm wondering whether the corners could become an issue. whether that might be better to rotate that angle as well. We'll try it like that. We'll have a look, see what it says in the software. Scroll out, rotate that. Again, just go for 3 across the bottom. Oh, they're mediums. Let's delete those. I think they look a little bit on the small side. I'm going to run a light support in on the side of this. Edit that. Grab that, bring it up slightly, move the whole thing out slightly, and move that tip. Yeah, these bits might be a problem. So that's that bit. Let's put that in there. Slide radiator. Tiny piece, and I'm going to rotate this which way? I'm going to rotate it that direction. And then I'm going to add the supports in the bottom of this. I'm going to put some on the side there as well, and I'll have to file that smooth. One on the bottom of there. I think I might catch a light one and just run into the bottom of there, just for a support on that. Okay, like that, and let's move that in slightly. I might have to rotate, yeah, I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees on that axis there. I think the last thing I'm going to add on to the print there is the buffers. So I'm just going to 3D print, select any of the buffer files, click OK. They're all identical, so you don't need to do each one. And then come back into Chiubox, add that in. The orientation for this, I'm going to go that direction, 90 degrees, so rotating the y-axis to 90. And then I'm going to put that upright like that. Okay, add the supports on the bottom, make sure they're mediums. See if I get 4 of them on there. Okay, so once I've got that, I'm then going to clone another 3 times. You can see I've used use as much of the build plate as possible, so that you can save time and money. You could obviously print taller parts on here, but there's not really enough room to get things like the cab on there, which that would have been beneficial. But never mind. It's going to take, we've said it's about 12 hours to print this. So we'll slice this, we'll test the file through validator, and then we'll get the printer working. Okay, so the validator's picked up a couple of bits. These bits on the toolbox, on the gearbox here, where there's coil starts. There's another part there, and another part there. So we just jump back into Chiubox and we'll have a look at those. So these are going to be on the side of here initially. We can put some supports in on this. Let's try and find the first one. So the first one looks like it is there. That will catch that. In fact, if we delete that one, actually, I don't want that medium. Let's go for light support on there. Up on the bottom there just to catch that. This one I might actually put as a medium coming from that side. Okay, so let's have a look at the top part. What's it flagging up on there? Of course, this bit here. Catch one there. We're going to have to move and edit this part around, so bring this up. Drag it away a little bit. And then we'll edit this to come right at the bottom of it. That's because we had that bit on the bottom that's floating, you can see there. Zoom in on that part there. I might have to just bring this down just a tiny bit. That's caught that there. I think that's all of the unsupported bits now supported. Let's just save that again. Okay, so sticking through the file validator now, the only one that's left is this 1105, which is just this little spot on here, supported on the next layer. So all I'm going to do within the software is just remove that. Obviously, if you can't use this software, which is only any use to a photon, you can either go into your file and just add a little support in there, or if you don't, then what you will have is this pixel will just literally float around. It might stick to the FEP, and then the best case scenario is it sticks to the FEP, in fact, because then what will happen is when it comes to this layer, that will pick it up and should pull it away. If it floats around within the resin, then you may end up with it, if it's a large enough piece, puncturing through the FEP, but one pixel probably won't cause an issue. Or what I would imagine it would do is just cause a little dent on the FEP, because the one pixel is 0.004 millimeters, so it's tiny. So as you see, I've removed that and I've got that first file created now. To give you an idea of how long that's taken to do those parts there, that's about an hour and a half in total to have done that. I know that the file's a little bit smaller, the video's a little bit smaller, about 45-50 minutes, but I've cut out quite a lot of time of the waiting between setups on that. So it's taken me about an hour to an hour and a half or so to create this. But hopefully, if this prints first time, then that's done and dusted and we don't really have to come back and make any changes. What I will do though is if I will save this file, and if I do have to, then I can come back into the Chiubox file and make an easy amendment to it. So that's test 1. But the only thing that I can think that potentially could be an issue is the handrails here. But you never know, something else might throw up a problem within the file. But we'll see how it looks after this initial print, and I'll continue setting up the rest of the files within Chitubox.